Okay, thank you so much, Cory. All right, so I guess it's 4 o'clock. So we are going to start, and we are going to start with some introductions. But before we do that, I really wanted to thank all of you for the flexibility to change the date, because I know the meeting was going to happen in July. So I really appreciate all of you being able to be flexible. So thank you so much. And also first day of school for many kids. So I don't know, Rose, if you have started already or not, but always thinking about that, especially as you commute through San Rafael. So welcome everybody. And we are going to do maybe like popcorn style, our name, if you're associated with an organization, and maybe one of the, one of the things that you do for sustainability that you like to do. So, and then we'll do a popcorn style so you can call the next person. So how about if we start with Arlin?
Thank you, Maika, Councilmember Maika. My name is Arlin, and I'm affiliated with the Multicultural Center of Marin. And my favorite thing to do regarding sustainability is cleanups. It feels so good to contribute to my community and see clean communities.
Wonderful. So Arlene, feel free to call on the next person.
Why don't we go with Ruben?
Ruben, can you hear us? I don't know if you can hear us. Ruben, can you hear us? No. Maybe Arlene, if you want to call on someone else, maybe I'll send a message to Ruben and see if he can. Yeah.
Rosemary, would you like to go?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Rose Radford with R3 Consulting, and we're a consultant to the city of San Rafael. I'm really excited to be included and very good to meet you all. And I guess my favorite thing to do with sustainability is recycling.
Now I'm muted.
Why don't I call on Cory? Sorry, I forgot.
Hi, I'm Cory, Bytof, Sustainability Coordinator or Manager for the City of San Rafael. And my favorite thing to do is ride my bike. And let's call on Simone.
Hi, I'm Simone with Marin Sanitary Service. I work in outreach, compliance, and education. And my favorite thing with sustainability is composting.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. And Simone, would you like to call on the next person?
Oh, yeah. I will call on Gretchen.
Hello, everyone. Sorry for being a little bit tardy. My name is Gretchen. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Novato. And my favorite thing about sustainability is getting to work with the community.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
And I'm going to call, I don't know who's spoken yet, but Arlin, have you gone?
Yeah.
How about Pamela?
Hi, I'm Pam Reeves, and I'm with the Marine Conservation League. And my favorite thing to do around sustainability is to get one more person at a time to drive electric. And I'll call on Kate Powers.
Sorry, my microphone's not working. Thanks. Kate Powers. I'm also with Marine Conservation League like Pam, and I'm also with the city's Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. And I think one of my favorite things to do is to advocate in terms of sustainability is to advocate for more safe and comfortable infrastructure for walking and bicycling in the city. And I'll call on David Muller.
I wasn't here for the question, but I guess I get the gist of it. I'm David Muller. I'm generally representing the Climate Reality Project and a number of citizen activist groups here in Marin. And my favorite thing about sustainability actions is taking action, is making stuff happen and seriously pushing back on the impacts of climate change. So many people seem to be just willing to just continue living their lives without taking it seriously. I like pushing back and making stuff happen. Thanks. And I don't have no clue who hasn't been called on. Cory, can you help me out? Oh, Ruben, I knew it was you.
Yeah, thank you, David. My name is Ruben Hernandez. I'm the government affairs representative with Marine Sanitary Service. And I truly believe that we have to go through policy we have to use policy in order to make a profound and lasting change on the climate crisis. It's time to take bold actions and at a policy level and get all the super emitters of greenhouse gases on the table and make them start reducing their emissions as soon as possible.
That's great, Ruben. You want to call on the next person?
Oh, sure. How about Carlos?
Hi, everyone. Carlos with Marin Sanitary Service, Outreach Coordinator and Recycling Coordinator. And yeah, my favorite aspect of sustainability is conducting outreach and showing people how to recycle right and how to compost. Was that everyone? Anyone we missed?
Yeah, I think a few. This is getting tricky now. How about William?
Yeah, hi, I'm, well, we've got several Williams, actually.
Oh, yes.
You're muted, I think, William. Callahan, you're muted. Still.
William, we just can't hear you. Try again, but.
Try the volume on the computer. Bill Carney, why don't you go?
Okay, well, while William's figuring that out. So I'm Bill Carney, I'm chair of Sustainable San Rafael. And I really love, when I get a spare moment, planting trees on behalf of bringing down carbon. And I'm gonna call on Kay.
Okay, I'm Kay Karszewski. I'm a member of Sustainable San Rafael and Sustainable Marin. And my favorite sustainability thing is trying to get people to use their green cans so we can compost more.
Do you want to call in the next person, Kay? It's getting a little bit tricky now.
And you're muted, Kay.
How about William Callahan?
William, I think there's maybe, we cannot hear you. He needs his headphones. I'm really good at signs. Is the good things about having like a language, English as a second language. How about Carlos? Carlos, can you hear us?
I think he already went.
Oh, he already went, okay. Trout, luck.
Hi, I'm not representing anything other than just being grateful to be here, but I love listening to Indigenous people's wisdom. Thank you.
Okay, how about
people who have not spoken raise their hands so that maybe they're at the forefront?
Okay, so Christine.
Hi, I'm Christina ORourke, and I'm the Sustainability Coordinator for the Marin Climate and Energy Partnership. And my favorite thing about sustainability is watching the community's emissions go down every year so far. I will call on Sean. I think you had your hand up, Sean.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Sean Yora. It's great to be here with you all. Cory kindly invited me. I'm a new Climate Corps Fellow with SEI Strategic Energy Innovations, and I'm helping the school district San Rafael City Schools with their sustainability projects. And I also support the Marin School of Environmental Leadership. So just getting started with all that. I'm like about a month in. But I'm mainly here to get a feel for how these meetings are and hopefully get the students involved with one of your quarterly meetings in the future for the lead projects that they'll be working on. As far as sustainability work that I love doing, I run a blog publication called Climate Conscious. And so I just love educating and raising awareness because, you know, it's hard to get enough people to take action if they don't know what's really going on. And the blog is one of many of those types of platforms to do that. Thank you. And anyone else that hasn't gone? Alice, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Alice Cochran. I'm with Dominican University part-time. And one of my favorite things to do is to work with the Matthew Turner, which is a sustainably built and sustainably operated tall ship out of Sausalito. So you can talk to Chris Galandis and anyone who went on a sustainability second annual sale last week. It was lots of fun. Come along. I will call on Chris.
You're muted, Chris.
There you go.
Thank you, Alice, for that wonderful introduction. Great to see everybody. I've missed you all over this long summer. I'm Chris Yolanis. I'm the founder of VenturePad, which is a co-working and entrepreneurship center in downtown San Rafael. So we work quite a bit on climate change initiatives and have really enjoyed working with the city on their CAP and working with my favorite sustainability professional, Cory. I love working with young companies who have sustainable driven solutions and helping them scale. That's my favorite thing. Let's see, raise hands, please, for those who haven't gone.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Go ahead.
You do?
Yes.
Oh, good. Oh.
Oops, you're freezing.
Oh, man.
No, you're okay. Keep going. William?
William, we can hear you.
He had a call.
I thought it was music. Okay, who else didn't go yet? Can you raise your hand? Kate. Kate Anderson?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Kate Anderson. I work with San Rafael Fire Department, City of San Rafael. And I work with Quinn Gardner, do more of the wildfire mitigation and open space management. So I'm invited here today and look forward to meeting all of you.
Great. William, so we try again?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, man. My computer, I had to rebuild my computer about a month ago, and I left one little wire out, and you have to take the glass off of it and everything. And it's, and I forgot that it's not working. So I plugged in my remote microphone. It didn't work. So then I thought, well, I'll use my things here. But anyways,
here you are.
It's been a few years since I've attended the meeting. I guess maybe 2 years or so. But I'm the founder of an organization here in Marin called OHIAS. And OHIAS stands for Our Health is at Stake. And it's an organization designed and developed to educate people to live more sustainably. And our first project that we created a few years ago, real quick, was the Marin Community Benefit Cooperative. And it was designed to put everybody to work that was looking for work, using all of our materials from the construction industry and the deconstruction industry, as well as all the urban trees, and transform them all into new materials. And we're certified by the state of California, Cal Recycle, and the Marin Zero Waste. And we got no support. It's like nobody was interested. So I'm raising the flag again. And we just completed a study here in Marin. If we took all the trees in Marin that are falling in an urban forest, it would reduce CO2e by 7 million tons a year and would add $10 million to our local economy. Wouldn't cost anybody a penny. So this is what I have, and this is what I'm doing, and it's time to make this thing happen. And I'm looking for people to come on become on the board of directors for our organization, for Marin Community Cooperative. We'll have our own sawmill and all the things that go with recovering all of these materials. They're now being burned and buried in Marin every day. So this is all the low-hanging fruit.
Okay, William, so that actually sounds like a really great project, and I'm very interested to hear more about it. I know that we don't have a lot of time for the meeting, so I'm sorry to cut you off a little bit, but I definitely want to learn more about it. So we'll connect.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so I think we have a couple more people. Maybe Stuart.
Yes, hi, I'm Stuart Siegel. I'm the director of the San Francisco Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve, of which China Camp is one of our 2 sites in the Bay Area. And I'm also on the board of Sustainable San Rafael with Bill Carney and Kay and many others. And I would say my favorite sustainability activity is adapting ourselves to climate change and sea level rise in particular in Marin County and the whole Bay Area. And I will pass on to, who do I see here that I don't think has spoken yet here, I haven't heard from.
Derek, Jennifer.
How about Jennifer?
Hi, everybody. Great group. I'm Jennifer with Marin Sanitary Service Outreach Manager. And I have to tell you, my favorite thing to do is just picking up trash on my way to lunch and anywhere else I walk. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you. And I think we are also having Derek.
Hello, everybody. It's good to see so many familiar faces. My name is Derek McGill. I'm the planning director at the Transportation Authority of Marin. My favorite thing about sustainability is that it's all encompassing. It crosses every aspect of government, and finding ways to work together with the various forces of government, nonprofits, and the community is, a particularly interesting area of work. And so always appreciated that in the sustainability world. Good to see everybody.
Thank you, Derek. And I see Quinn. I don't know that. I think Quinn didn't go yet. Quinn, are you there?
Hey, I'm council member. My name is Quinn Gardner. I'm the emergency manager for the city of San Rafael. Look forward to listening to your meeting and speaking with you a little bit later. Oh, my favorite thing lately, it's probably lugging my 5-gallon buckets out of my shower to water my tomato plants that are thriving. So
very cool. Okay, so I think we got everybody. Anybody? Are we missing anybody? I think we got most. Okay, good. So we have like a packed agenda. I don't know if you have it in front of me. In front of you. But I think for me, I was going to say my favorite sustainable thing is to educate our children on sustainability. But after being here with this group, I think it's like being with the same minded people in one room working together to have like the similar goals. So I'm so happy to be here with all of you. So with that, I will start with our first topic for the agenda, which is SB 1383. And we have Rosemary Radford from R3 Consultant that is going to give us a little bit of an explanation. So welcome again.
Thank you so much. And I don't know, Cory, if you wanted to set some context, I think that might be helpful before I go diving into this extensive presentation, which I will try to keep as brief as possible.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rose. And I just made you a co-host so you can share your screen for the presentation. So perfect. We're working with R3 Consulting Group and all of the Marin Sanitary Service agencies, jurisdictions, Larkspur, Ross, parts of the county of Marin, San Anselmo, Fairfax, Las Colinas Valley Sanitary District. working together to implement SB 1383 in the best way possible so that we can not only meet the letter of the law, which will require us to have a new ordinance by the end of the year to mandate composting, and also for us to procure compost and mulch from this, create a circular system. There's a lot involved in it, and what we're trying to do is do it as best that we can, right? To try to meet the spirit of the law, to try to make sure that we use the best and highest uses for materials before they actually get composted. So Rose is going to give a presentation of sort of what our status is, and then we will be back in our October meeting with more information to get some feedback, and then we'll take it to council in November or December. Take it, Rose.
Right, and I think a really important part of sort of building the context around this too is exactly what Ruben was saying about policy setting. And this is a great example of statewide policy that is being handed down to every jurisdiction in California. So I'm going to be providing more context about what the law requires. It's mainly focused on business requirements. So, you know, there's a lot of detail in my slides. I will probably skip some of that. But if you do have questions, I'm happy to take those, and I'm sure that we can provide a copy of this presentation at the end. Just want to give you some ideas about what's sort of coming down, and really happy to hear any feedback that you have. So with that, can you all see the big version? Sometimes it's a little tricky. Okay, perfect. All right, so just in brief, SB 1383, a summary of the law and why it was passed, a summary of the Municipal Code updates that will be coming through, and again, that's statewide. Changes to the commercial program, and then just a brief opportunity for questions and comments. So first of all, what are organics? What are we talking about to begin with? We're talking about yard clippings, vegetative matter, the kind of things that you would expect to put in your, organics cart, your green cart at home. We're also talking about food scraps, which is a really important part of the organics waste stream in California, and is accepted in your green cart at home as well as food soil paper like coffee filters, pizza boxes, things like that. Or something you might not actually know is that organic waste is the largest waste stream in California. Of all of the material that's disposed of at landfills in California, it's about 2/3 of our waste stream, and that includes a lot of food scraps. This is important because when that material is landfilled, it actually breaks down and produces methane gas because it's anaerobically decomposing. And as you all know, that's a really significant contributor to climate change, which is a big issue in our state and throughout the world. So in response to that, California, the state, passed in 2016 SB 1383. So this is a legislation that builds on the predecessor, particularly AB 32, really focusing on climate change and practical solutions to how to change our systems to mitigate the effects and to reduce our emissions. It's an unfunded state mandate, so the state is not collecting any fees or funds for it. All of the funds have to be found by the local government agencies themselves. And local government is required to provide organic waste collections for essentially everybody within their jurisdiction. So that includes businesses, that includes residents, which all residents already have that. So this is a pretty extensive law, and all residents and businesses are required to actually source, separate, and divert their organic waste. Outreach and education is included. And another important part of the law is an edible food recovery program, which covers, we'll get into a little bit more detail about that, but it's a little bit different from just sorting out organic waste after it has already become waste. And then there's an inspection and enforcement component. So in terms of business requirements, it's pretty simple. If you have organics service, you're covered, you're fine. You can also backhaul organics. You're not necessarily required to sign up for service with your hauler. But you do need to document the fact that you are self-hauling. If you do not have space, you can file for an exemption with the city. And if you don't have organic service, you need to either submit an exemption or get service somehow. On edible food, there's 2 tiers of businesses. Basically, the largest businesses that we expect to generate the most potentially edible food, supermarkets, grocery stores, and some less familiar categories. Food service providers are like caterers. Food distributors could be like Imperfect Foods as an example, or like a bagel distributor. Wholesale food vendors, think of like Costco or businesses like that. Tier 2 drills down a little bit farther. So restaurants that are large enough, large hotels, health facilities like hospitals, large venues and events, state agencies and schools. As long as they're large enough and they have an on-site food facility, the expectation is that any food that is actually remains edible at the end of the day should be donated to people in need. And if a business is covered and required to donate, they must donate, and they need a contract with a food recovery organization. There are several that are active in the county currently, and the expectation is to continue to develop the network of food recovery organizations over time. Tier 1 starts next year, very soon. Tier 2 in 2024, so this is coming really fast. Just briefly on the requirements for residential and multifamily, residents can already sort their food, as I mentioned. You'll now be required to sort it by the law. And multifamily, specifically of 5 or more units, are regular, almost like a commercial business, and also required to sign up for service. It's not necessarily always included in the default service that's provided, unlike in single family. So the city, and like I said, all cities throughout the state will be updating the municipal code, which is required under SB 1383, to essentially enact the existing requirements that I've described already, make service mandatory, describe how the waiver process would work, how the self-haul is regulated, and the edible food recovery requirements. An important part of this also is that the state is requiring that all local jurisdictions enact a full enforcement policy for that, which means there are warnings, but there's also a requirement to assess penalties if there's non-compliance that just continues over time, and that would begin in 2024. So, we'll just quickly say that businesses without service will be notified. Exemptions are available. You can go and find those or contact the city if you're a business. I don't think there's many businesses here. So I did go through this a little bit quickly, so I hope that that's okay. I'm happy to go back through the slides again if there's anything that I should dwell on a little bit more.
Wow, that was really good and go to the point and very efficient. So thank you so much. We are, Cory, I believe that we are going to bring this to the council by the end of the year. So we are open to get input. So if you have any questions right now, otherwise, you can email me or Cory with some of your feedback. So anybody has any questions? Chris.
I'm in a fairly large office building downtown San Rafael. There's probably 20, 30 businesses here. And I know that we don't have any in our in-house sanitary service, or maintenance service, we don't have organic pickup. Even though I'm composting and it is part of my waste handling here. But right now I don't have any service to pick that up. So it's up to me then it's up to all these business owners in my building to work out where they're going to dispose of that compost and organics. So what will change, or what's in place that will address 20 different businesses here in this building? How are we going to manage that?
I think that's a great question, and I can take a first stab at it, and I would welcome the many representatives of Marin Sanitary to jump in as well if you'd like. But it's a great question in terms of how the city and MSS will identify who's covered and identify the businesses is really by the account owner. So whoever arranges for the existing garbage service for that unit complex is then required to arrange for the organic service as well. And so that's kind of the point of contact. And so I would urge you to maybe get in touch with the landlord and let them know, that this requirement is coming. So what can they do to get ahead? And Ruben, go ahead.
Yeah, also Chris, well, first of all, thank you for doing your part. Not surprised there, but SB 1383 requires that both the landlords or property managers, as well as the tenants, are responsible to divert the organic waste. So it sounds like you're already doing your part. Now we got to get your property management or your landlord to on board, because it is their responsibility as well as yours and all of the other tenants of the building.
Well, and the landlord, I would think, needs, do you feel like the landlord needs to educate his tenants with a program and give them instructions about just the physical act of saving and storing the compost? And then as the building maintenance team comes through every other night, they've got to be briefed on this, right, in terms of picking it up and then putting it out on the street. Right? I mean, there's multiple parties that need to be kind of sequenced and coordinated.
Yeah, the law requires the landlords to or property management companies to train their tenants about what they need to do to comply with the law. Mm-hmm. And I think Jennifer has something else to add.
Oh, thanks, you guys. I've worked with this particular property manager, and what's interesting is I believe that there is a can there, and we did implement and offered trainings and gave information to share with all of the tenants, but it's disappointing to hear that it didn't come down to you.
Well, it might be, Jennifer, that I do have a separate account. I'm not part of the normal waste collection every night, so I have a separate account, here at the corner of the building.
Gotcha.
That might be why I have the experience that I have in not being brought into the compost process here.
Okay.
Chris,
well, let me know if I can help.
Okay. Yeah, why don't we talk offline, and then we'll make sure that everyone has the service that they need.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Sounds great. Yeah, it seems to me that there's going to be, we're not going to need to do some education around this, but what a great way to fight climate change. So again, we really look forward to your input. So if you have any additional questions or comments, feel free to reach out to either Cory or myself with some of the comments. So thank you so much. And we are going to move into the next topic, which is I think like probably the most recent, talking about wildfire and preparedness with the fire that we just had this week in San Rafael, and the amazing job that our fire department did and our emergency response. So we are very lucky to have Quinn Gardner actually in our department, and she is going to be presenting. I've been always very impressed since I started on the council in December with her skills. So I introduce you to Quinn Gardner and talking about wildfire and preparedness.
Thank you, council member. Really excited to be able to speak with everybody this afternoon. Kate introduced herself, but I asked her to join me today to talk a little bit. She's the lead on some of our open space projects, which obviously has direct implications and interest for this group. So we don't have a formal presentation, just kind of wanted to have a conversation and make sure we were available to address any questions that you may have, that we might be able to answer, any ideas. So Kate's going to get us started and talk a little about some of the open space work we're doing and why that fits in. And ultimately, I think one of the things we want to help make sure everybody understands is that while a lot of wildfire mitigation work does involve plant removal, it's not to the detriment of the environment and compared to other situations like everything burning down, and then also how we target what plants we're choosing to remove. So Kate's going to dive a little more into that.
Quinn. Yeah, like I said, I'm excited to speak with everyone today. I had no idea what I was getting into, and I'm really pleasantly surprised. So just getting right into it, as Quinn mentioned, we're focusing a lot on our open space management here within the city-owned open space, but through the MWPA, San Rafael has its own zone, which is pretty much our jurisdiction, Marin would. But we also have partners with state parks and Marin County Open Space and other public land agencies as such. So we're focusing on our own open space as well as partnering with other agencies to do a larger landscape level projects now and into the future. So in the short term, we're focusing on the immediate hazard mitigation. As we can tell, we've already had a few starts within the county, and most recently right on our own hill in our backyard. What's interesting about that is the work that we've already been doing helped a lot in mitigating what could have been. We had a fuel reduction project that we started in June that ran into April or into July. And when that fire reached the ridge, it was significantly slowed by the efforts that we'd implemented already. So the fuel mitigation aids a lot in helping the suppression activities on the ground, but also if we're not there, that's serving as a really good access point and anchor point for those crews to do their work. So in the short term, we're focusing on the immediate mitigation efforts along roadsides, as well as in the defensible space zone. In San Rafael, we do have a lot of publicly owned land and privately owned land that abuts our residential developments. That's what we're calling the wildland urban interface. And that's really where we're targeting our efforts in these first couple of years of this new funding source. What's really important about that, it's a collaborative approach. We're trying to focus on areas that we've assessed to be high risk based on the vegetation communities in that area, the slope, the topography, the expected wind conditions, and other weather factors that we know to be in those areas, as well as just the density of housing in those areas as well. So focusing on that, we're able to really coordinate that effort with our defensible space evaluation team. So, fire mitigation it's a collaborative approach. We have our portion, we're working with individuals to create a collective effort that's going to benefit the entire community. So if everyone's doing their part, those small efforts do add up to a cumulative impact, positive cumulative impact there. So
if I can jump in really quick,
yes.
I think what visual might be really helpful. I'm going to do a quick screen share because we have all this information online and no one ever knows how to find it. So if you're on the fire department's website on the city, and there's this protecting against wildfire section, and then right from there, we break it down into what you can do, which I'm going to touch on here in a minute. And then a lot of what Kate is touching on is right under this, what is the city doing? So she mentioned the roadway clearances, vegetation removal, goats are one of our tools. In specific, I'll pull up this map that's actually, we have a couple other they should be getting approved by the MWPA board as we speak. That'll be up here in a few weeks. But this was our treatment area for the project Kate mentioned. This actually incorporates 2 phases, which we're starting the second phase here in a little bit. But this is basically the area that fire was in. And that stopped right up here on this ridge where that break was where the team was able to get a stop. So I think that's a really impactful visual to kind of understand, one, how we do the fuel reduction work specifically around homes, But then especially as it relates to this fire that we just had, one of the access points was off of Graceland, and then this top is basically Robert Dollar, the fire road, and up to the water tower. So I hope that's helpful for folks. And if you're interested in any of the other work we're doing, like I said, it's all under this "what is the city doing" kind of section here. So sorry to jump in on that, Kate.
No, thank you for jumping in. I got the loose outline, but realize I'm rambling a little bit. So that's given a lot of context to what I'm saying. Yeah, so as Quinn mentioned, we have most of our work, we're getting posted on our website. That's really able to help the community understand where work's being done in relation to their own homes and their neighborhoods. And I'm hoping to get a map up with all of our planned and completed projects as well, so we can really see how these projects that we're focusing on are really dispersed through the community, and how you can see how your home is impacted and the community as a whole. So since this is a sustainability based group, I'll get into some of the climate impacts of this work. Like I said, the immediate focus is that short-term mitigation, focusing on that defensible space, creating those shaded fuel breaks. These are fuel modification zones where we're really trying to create a space where if fire is coming from an open space area, it's going to slow the progress of the forward spread of the fire by the time it gets to any residential development. That helps create space for people to evacuate, as well as increases the safety to any responding crews. And increases the survival of one's home if they've also done their part in hardening their home as well. So that's where those two objectives come together. Long term, we're looking for ecosystem health improvements. It's taken us over 200 years to get into the situation we're in. The expansion in urban development within California into these open areas where we used to have a regular fire return interval. We have suppressed that and continued our expansion into those areas. So with climate change and these continued droughts that we're having more frequently, it shouldn't be surprising that we're finding ourselves in this situation. So long term, it's going to take a long time to get back to that fire adapted landscape, but starting by our homes and where we can access these open space areas is a really good first step. Long term, we can look at larger scale landscape management practices, but starting small is what we can do. To make my point, climate impacts, if we can enable fires to spread less intensely over the landscape by reducing the fuel loads, we'll have less severe fires overall. Less severe fires equates to fewer immediate emissions, less plant death overall, and less soil heating. So with less soil heating as well, we are maintaining a lot of that organic matter in the soil, maintaining that mycorrhizae and that organic soil layer, which after the fire really equates to less runoff and more, just a better chance of recovery of the vegetation in that area as a whole. So that's what we're hoping for in the future with these larger scale management practices, and starting small is our first step.
Okay, I see a question.
Oh yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay. Pamela, do you have a question?
Yes, that's really wonderful to hear, Kate. I applaud all of your work. I have some questions left over from days when I used to be more involved in integrated pest management, and the fire department used an enormous amount of Roundup on Scotch broom or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just checking about Roundup use, and also it seemed to be that the broom was also removed at the wrong time, so seeds spread rapidly. And I bet you have been changing that. So those are my two areas of concern, and that's it. Thanks.
Broom's a big that's a big challenge to tackle in the entirety of the county. Right now, we can work to, I don't know if complete eradication is ever going to be possible on a large scale, but in our fuel reduction zones, with continued maintenance, whether that's pulling or cutting, if we are maintaining these fuel breaks as we intend them to be permanent infrastructure going to the future with the wildfire kind of horizon that we have, hopefully we will exhaust that seed bank. That's the goal. It's going to take a really long time with those methods, but continued maintenance and dedication to those efforts, we can try in those smaller areas to control that population. And you're right, trying to pull or cut broom before the seed pods are viable is the best option. We're trying to do that before June. That's typically when that happens. At that point, if we pull it and we can keep those seeds either not on site, but if we can alleviate spreading those seeds on the way off the site, that's what we're trying to do. So that's either hopefully bagging or just being really careful with our transportation of that material.
And I'd add, Pamela, because Kate always undersells herself. Kate is a registered forester, and we are super lucky to have her, that we're not just looking at this in a total risk reduction, but we really are looking at these challenges in a forest health standpoint. And the immediate need is this risk reduction. Our long-term goals definitely circulate much more around forest health that inherently makes it more adapted to wildfire. But because of the buildup, because of the suppression of fire over 100+ years, we're in a tough spot, and I think we all recognize that. So, but we do take care with nesting surveys and things like that. We don't currently use Roundup. I don't imagine we'd ever be using specifically Roundup. There is, potential need to do very limited spot treatments of herbicide in the future, but none of our current projects have that scoped in. And that's really just kind of like, we're in this vicious cycle with some of these plants, broom and eucalyptus specifically, that if we're not actually treating it to spot treat it, to totally actually kill the plant, we're in a never ending cycle where we really can't get the health back to where we want it to be, because we're just constantly cutting things down, which isn't what anybody wants to be doing. So, Ruben, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you. I read on my newsfeed that a large percentage of Marin's residents haven't paid attention to their defensible fire space. I mean, obviously that's a huge problem, right? And I was wondering if you guys have any plans on do community outreach to really get people, bring people into action and make sure that they pay attention to that important component of fire prevention here in the county.
Yeah, that's a great question. Maybe a perfect transition to one of my next talking points, Kate, if it's all right if I make that transition.
Yes, definitely.
So I'll pull back up the website again, and under here specifically, we call out defensible space. And then when you get into that defensible space tab and scroll down, we've got a lot of resources that break down the standards by zone. And most importantly, I want to call everybody's attention to this inspection notice / mailer. So this is slightly reformatted, but this content was mailed to every single address in the city. So if yours ended up in your recycling, please go to the website. This is here for you. I can put this direct link into the chat. And we really do encourage everybody to make defensible space. To date, the city has hit just over 8,000 defensible space evaluations. And our hope, we plan on continuing our defensible space evaluation program through at least Thanksgiving. And what that is we've got about 12 seasonal inspectors supported by 3 full-time staff that are going door to door and talking to people about how they can adapt their landscape. And then we work through and we have a form that we fill out and we create a full report for them that also includes resources and suggestions on plant replacement and things like that for more native species and more fire adapted species. So, and I think the article you might be referencing, we in the city have about a 50% compliance rate for our defensible space evaluations. Of those that aren't compliant, it's probably about 50-50 that it's minor little things versus significant risks. And it's those significant risks that we spend a lot of our time doing follow-up work with and providing resources to. We just wrapped up a direct assistance program with a partnership with AmeriCorps St. Louis, in which we were able to help over 50 residents achieve defensible space and remove things like Italian cypress and juniper and things like that. So completely agree. It's a huge part of it. I think what a lot of folks are concerned about is they don't want their landscape. They think creating defensible space means an ugly, non-native, right? Doesn't support pollinators, all that kind of stuff, landscape. And the truth is that all works really well together. And defensible space really is about the right plant in the right place and maintaining it the right way. And so we're really working on those programs. And actually, Cory, I guess I'm gonna maybe spill the beans on this idea, but I love it. Cory and I were just talking about a potential collaboration where we can kind of tag team things to help people, give people trees to plant on their property to replace some of the more fire hazardous things they might have cut down. And that over time, we don't want to remove every tree. Trees are great. If you get up on the hill and you look at the most recent fire, right, those oaks are so adapted to fire. I think one of them might be dead. Almost all of them, totally fared decently. And some of that was the conditioning we've done around those plants. A lot of that was removing the ladder fuels from under them. The grasses, because of the drought, there was a weird plus there. Because of the drought, the grasses weren't super heavy, so there wasn't a lot of fuel under the trees. But all of that supports, obviously, forest health as well as minimizing climate impact. So totally agree, defensible space is super important and it's a huge focus of our prevention program. Sure.
Yeah, just really quick, we're about to print and send a newsletter to all of our customers, and I was wondering if it would be helpful to include a quick blurb pointing our customers to these resources, although I don't think that would be, because we're going to send it to all of our customers in all of our jurisdictions. So
I think one of the great potential partnerships there is we always tell people it doesn't have to be a massive project. Is your green cart full every week? And if it's not, there's an opportunity there to improve your defensible space, whether that's just the dead leaves that dropped or trimming some things a little further from your house. So we could definitely talk about it and see what language might exist. And there is countywide initiatives under the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority that might make sense to put into that.
Yeah, that would be great. Also, it would be amazing if you guys could come to our customer appreciation date at the end of September, and then be there to pass out this information and educate the public about how important this is.
Yeah, happy to. I'm sure Cory can get us connected and we can talk through some of that. Bill?
Yeah, hi. I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of a really important community effort under the auspices of Drawdown Marin, which is being conducted and relates both to what Quinn and Kate have been talking about, as well as to what Rose and Marin Sanitary were talking about. This is the Marin Biomass Recovery Project, and Bell Cole has been leading this effort. It's an endorsed project of Drawdown Marin, and it includes, to the last points that Quinn was talking about, there's been an ecologically sound practices partnership that actually has produced how many pages? 18-page set of guidelines for property owners to maintain their properties in a fire-safe way, but with ecologically sound practices, so we do end up with a healthier landscape overall, which is what you've heard emphasized here today. All of this means, of course, a lot of trimming of vegetation. And that results in a lot of biomass or organic material going into the stream that MSS and others need to handle. So the second phase of that work is a study on what to do with that biomass. You know, can you turn it into electricity? Can you turn it into compost? Can you turn it into things that really help reduce greenhouse gases and even sequester that carbon back into the ground where it can do good, as well as maintaining the landscape that you take it from in the first place. So very important, you know, set of things that are being looked into. And if anybody wants to get involved in that, please do. The effort has been coordinated both with Marin Sanitary and Zero Waste Marin and the Marin Wildfire Protection Authority. So we're trying to really create a conversation here with particular actions coming out of it of how to maintain landscapes and what to do with the material coming out of it. Thanks.
Bill, I just got a point with that. Seeing as three of the MWPA zones have all submitted evacuation route clearance improvements, that seems like a really good place to start with capturing some of the material. There's going to be a lot in the next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
With those projects.
I'm going to interject really quickly just because of time. We're at about almost 5, and we still have 3 more people. So this is a great conversation, though. So I want to just check in. Are people okay with staying a little later or not? Or if anybody has a real concern about that, maybe pipe up real quick. Or otherwise, maybe just like a few more minutes and then move on. Does that sound good? Thank you. I know it's super important topics. I hate to do that.
We can wrap up the rest of the questions. I see Alice, you have your hand up. You're muted still.
I believe when I received my first notice, there was something about a deadline of the end of August or something, but is there any enforcement? You mentioned something about till Thanksgiving. I mean, there are people that are refusing to do some of the mitigation that you're asking, and how is that going to be enforced?
Yeah, so we are yes, we are enforcing. We're trying more gentle nudges first. So some of the properties that we've already inspected that have had 30 or 60 days to comply, you know, we're checking back in with them. About 50% of people we check back in with actually send us pictures that say, look, I did it, or I'm almost done, or my plan is this, which is great. There are definitely going to be a few troublesome properties. The August deadline applied to the properties in the WUI, the Wildland Urban Interface. And I think an important thing is we did change our vegetation standards to be citywide. I think that was early this year. Time is very confusing these days, but it was early this year, I think. And we kept the August deadline for the WUI because there were only 2 significant changes for those properties, and it was Italian cypress and acacia. We'd already had juniper on the books since 2007. So WUI properties that are saying, you know, we haven't done a lot of enforcement until the MWPA because we haven't had enough ways to support residents, and we wanted to make sure we had the ability to support them. So we are going through that process now. Properties outside the Wildland Urban Interface had until April of next year because there's much more significant changes that we're asking them to make to their property. They've never had standards before. But I think generally speaking, when you get to actually talk to our inspectors and have those conversations, overall people are like, oh, this looks great. And I think even when you go out and look at some of our shaded fuel breaks where we just remove that understory, that's what we want our forests to look like, right? They're open areas, you can see through them. And that's the same thing we want to see on your property. We don't want you cutting down big mature trees unless they're Italian cypresses, and moving through that. So yes, enforcement is underway. That was a very long way of saying yes, Alice.
Thanks. I've been away a month and I had seen no change
Understood.
when I got back, so I thought I'd ask.
Understood. William?
Yes. You hear me now?
Yep, you're good.
A lot of the biomass, the clippings from the yard and everything, as well as trees, urban trees and so forth, constitute a lot of landfill for daily cover. And we all understand the daily cover is important. And there's a lot of, as Bill mentioned earlier, there's a lot more coming out of our communities. And we need to make a division between what should be used as daily cover and what should not be used as daily cover. What we need to do is make sure only the trimmings are used and the stems of the trees, the body of the trees are not ground up and chipped away, because all this does is accelerate more greenhouse climate warming. And as I mentioned earlier, there's, if we look at all of this, there's about 7 million tons of CO2e that are being wasted here in Marin that actually could be put to work. So yeah, we need to do it. The other thing we need to do, one last thing, is that we need to make sure that maybe an ordinance or something that we can no longer bulldoze buildings, that they must be deconstructed. And if they're deconstructed, you know, the last building that was deconstructed last year, I guess there were a number last year, but the one down on 2nd Street and B Street before a new hotel, you know, there are 2 Victorian buildings. And I can understand why the property manager or the building architect or whatever didn't want to invest in anything in that building, but certainly the city should take responsibility and make sure that this doesn't happen anymore.
Appreciate that feedback.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Kate and Quinn. Again, we are so lucky to have them in our department, and you can have more information in there. Kate, I know that you had your hand like up. I see that it's down now. Do you have like a last question for like 30 seconds before we move on?
Yeah, I just wanted to voice a concern that with all the vegetation removal, we're also removing a lot of possible habitat for insects and birds and understory creatures. And without water, we can't replace with natives because natives have to get established. So I do think that there's a balance. I understand the need for fire protection and prevention, but I also think there's a balance, and I do appreciate the ecologically sound practices. I think they're really important to understand that we don't just live here alone, that there's other species that we have to consider.
Yeah, I really appreciate that feedback. And I think that's part of why we work with residents to phase things on their own property. I think the distancing requirements help with that too, right? 0 to 5 being most important, and then kind of working your way out. And that can phase over time to allow you to replant and work through some of those things. In the same way that most of our open space planning isn't broad scale, it's really the zones behind homes, or it's a shaded fuel break along a fire road, so that we're still leaving some of that other areas, as you mentioned, for those types of habitats. So I saw one more hand go up, Councilmember. I'll leave that up to you.
I think we're just going to, I'm sorry, Dolores, just because of time, I want to be respectful of our other speakers. So I think we are going to move on. But again, if you have any questions, let us know and we'll get you an answer for sure. So we are going to go with the Canal Community Resiliency Council and Arlin. Thank you so much for your patience. And again, thank you, Quinn and Kate. That was really awesome. So thank you. Arlin, I know that you have 15 minutes. If you can make it in 10, even better. So thank you so much.
I'll be very brief. For everyone who arrived late to the meeting, my name is Arlin Benavides, and I work with the Multicultural Center, and I work with Marco Berger, who invited me to this meeting today to be with you all. And I was asked to share some of the highlights or things going on in the Community Council. Community resilience, apologies. And I wanted to start off with Marco and I are working to restructure the resilience team, or just to make sure that it fits the needs and that it's addressing all the topics that the community members would like to discuss. So one thing that Marco brilliantly did was recently we created different groups, and that was to be able to address the topics that the community is interested in exploring and learning about. And so there is 6 groups that we established, and 5 of them are up and running. And those are the Green Team that is going to be addressing waste management and illegal dumping. And we want to thank the City of San Rafael, especially Cory Bytof, for helping us and providing some of that information and resources that we provide for the community residents in the Canal community. And then we have the climate resilience team, and we're exploring environmental issues related to the effects of climate change, such as sea level rise and flooding. Then we have the planning policy and advocacy team, and that one is centered or focused on the process of becoming, or it's actually in the process of becoming a steering committee. And what we're working with Sustainable San Rafael and Bill Carney to be able to teach community residents about the general plan and how to implement its programs, also monitor any advocacy opportunities for them, and learn more about housing programs. Then we have food access, and that team is working with the food bank, San Francisco Food Bank, and they're learning about, or they're discussing topics to be able to dispel myths about CalFresh and other government programs related to food access. And I believe they're going to be doing outreach in the future. And then there's the housing team, and they're going to be exploring housing issues, affordable housing advocacy, and tenant rights and eviction logistics. And as we are restructuring the community council or the resilience council for the Canal community, we're also getting guest speakers that are coming to the community members to be able to discuss. And recently we had someone from Alcohol Justice and Marin Sanitary Service to be able to discuss waste management and opportunities for bulk item pickup and drop off. Yesterday we had one attorney, staff attorney from Legal Aid of Marin, and we also had a representative from Fair Housing of Northern California, and they presented on tenants' rights, discriminatory practices in housing, and other resources that the community can tap into. And I believe that the next meeting that we're going to hold, that's going to be centered around neighborhood safety, and we're hoping to invite a guest speaker from San Rafael PD. And so in the future, we're just looking to inform the community to be able to touch on all the topics that they're interested about, making sure that we're educating them on these issues that are either like going to affect them as a community or are around them in their vicinity. And so we hope to continue this process of making sure that we are engaging with them deeply. Thank you.
Arlin, thank you so much. That is very exciting. And I love the fact that you're partnering with other CBOs as well to serve our community. So that's excellent news. And I look forward to continuing attending those meetings. They are always very well attended. So thank you. Okay, we are going to go to the next speaker, which is Christina ORourke. And we are talk about the EV strategy. So Christine, welcome.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm Christina ORourke, and I'm the Sustainability Coordinator for the Marin Climate and Energy Partnership. I was invited here tonight to give you an update on the Countywide EV Readiness Plan that MCEP is preparing, or to give you an overview. I'm not sure if you're all aware that we are preparing this plan. I have a few slides that I can share with you. Let me just get this started. Okay, and you can all see my presentation, I assume. Great, thank you. All right. So I know time is short, so I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, but I bet we can have this presentation made available to you. So the Countywide EV Readiness Plan is being funded through TAM's Alternative Fuel Program, and as I said, MCEP is guiding the process. A lot of our climate action plans that our cities and towns have been adopting, including San Rafael, have a number of programs and actions in them regarding EVs and trying to accelerate EV adoption. But they also have as part of those programs something that says adopt an EV plan. So this is meant to kind of fulfill that that requirement in the caps. So our goal here is that we're going to develop a plan that can be accepted or adopted by all of the jurisdictions. We are drafting this plan right now, so I don't have a draft to share with you, but what I thought I could share with you is some of the findings that we have from the outreach that we conducted earlier on in this process, earlier in the beginning of this year. And we met with a bunch of stakeholders, with planning and city public works staff. We met with some nonprofits, with regional agencies, and with some community leaders. So we were trying to get a good understanding of the existing conditions, barriers to EV adoption, and we're starting to explore actionable strategies that we could include in this countywide plan. So I have these grouped by different topic areas. Again, going to go through this pretty quickly. EV fleet and policies. So we found that all but one jurisdiction has EVs in their fleet. The EVs are mostly they're passenger vehicles, and they're used for things like site visits or off-site meetings, for commuter vehicles. And, but you know, passenger vehicles really are a very small percentage of our municipal fleets. Most of them are things like police patrol cars and public works trucks. And those have been much more difficult to replace with EVs because there just aren't the kind of vehicles available for those special duties and for heavy duty. So we do have like the Ford F-150, which is coming online next year, and that should really help because there's a lot of pickup trucks in these fleets. Most of our jurisdictions have either written or otherwise a policy that to prioritize EV purchases, and they'll even spend more money if necessary in order to get an EV version of the vehicle. So I would say all of our cities and towns are kind of on board with having 100% EV fleet by 2030. And the real issue here is just the availability of models. So hopefully as the market matures and changes, that more of those will become available. Regarding public EV chargers, all but 3 jurisdictions have installed EV chargers for public use. The biggest obstacle here really for kind of expanding the EV chargers is just the cost of trenching and also bringing electricity to the site. Also, a lot of our cities have concerns that these chargers just don't break even when you consider the cost of subscription with the third-party vendor, maintenance, electricity, and depreciation. They also can be a bit of a maintenance headache. So there are some obstacles to installing additional public EV chargers, although most of our jurisdictions do have plans and intentions to install more. As far as level 3 charging or DC fast charging goes, we spoke with the jurisdictions to kind of identify some potential locations for more fast charging. We have a recognition that we need more level 3 charging, especially near multifamily housing. It's very difficult for those residents and tenants to charge in existing multifamily buildings. So potential locations are kind of the usual suspects. They include shopping centers, any place that's kind of an easy on-off from Highway 101. Also city town halls or other public buildings that have high use, like libraries. Best locations are those that have access to services such as, you know, a restaurant or have Wi-Fi available, so people have something to do while they're waiting there for charging for about 20 minutes. And then we're also talking about having fast chargers required for new or remodeled gas stations. As far as a EV reach code goes, and this is basically adopting regulations that go beyond the base state code. All jurisdictions are interested in a reach code for EV standards. The county and Mill Valley actually already have one. And the general sentiment is that the single family requirement is probably sufficient, but we really need to go further for multifamily and non-residential requirements, and to also look at triggering the requirement when there's a substantial remodel project. So one of the proposals that we're considering is requiring 100% EV ready spaces for multifamily development. That would be like 1 space per unit. Also chargers for the common parking area. And then another thing that one of the regional agencies suggested that we look at doing incorporating in our code something that would say, well, you provide one DC fast charger that is equivalent to 5 level 2 chargers. So making there being some more options in the REACH code. For EV outreach, most of our jurisdictions are promoting EV events and rebates, and when they get a new EV or they install an EV charger, they are promoting it. They're using their typical outreach vehicles for that: the newsletter, their website, social media, mailers. Probably the most effective or well-read ones, I should say, are manager newsletters. Also, Nextdoor has a really good reach. Some jurisdictions have great luck with Instagram and Facebook, and those help to kind of reach other audiences that don't sign up for the city manager newsletter. Our staff is telling us that it would be very helpful if we were providing kind of a consistent message and links and giving them, little blurbs that were easy for them to insert in newsletters and to put up on their website. Also heard a lot about how we really need a marketing campaign, maybe something like a shop local campaign that addresses the barriers to adoption and has a big goal and something that all of the cities can promote together. And then this is kind of my last topic area, just other ideas and kind of a catch-all, but not really a catch-all, because social equity is a really important part of this plan. And so we want to be sure that we're using a social equity lens as we develop all of the policies and programs in the plan, especially when we're talking about where we're going to locate EV charging facilities and as we're designing programs, just to make sure that there's equal and equitable access to all of them. Other requests were to provide specific standards for our REACH code suggestions or recommendations, and also to really kind of look at where public chargers should be and how we should prioritize those. So for our tentative schedule, as I said, MCP is drafting this plan right now. We are expecting to have an administrative draft available by October, and then a public review draft in January, when we'll be going out to the sustainability commissions, perhaps back here. I could present it to you again in January. And then we are looking to have the plan approved or adopted by all of the local governments and by TAM sometime in April to May of next year. So that is the end of my slide presentation.
That's wonderful, Christine. And I'm assuming that is October of 2021. You say it's October 2020. So.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much. October 20. Yeah, we're not going backwards. Yes.
Great. Well, so thank you so much for the presentation. How about if we give like 5 minutes for questions, so that way Cory has like about 7 to 8 minutes to finish the meeting. Any questions?
I think there's a question from Ruben. Ruben, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, hi, thank you. Thanks for this. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. So I had an EV or 2 separate EVs for 6 years. So I drove EVs for 6 years, and I absolutely love them. But I did have challenges when it came to finding charging stations that were working. And it looks like you have on your plans to address that issue, but I would say that that's one of my my main concerns and the biggest issues, not finding available charging stations that are working, and maybe like changing the parking meters to charging stations and charge people that park while they're charging. Instead of putting coins into a parking meter, you can pay to park but charge your vehicle at the same time. That's just a solution that comes to mind.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much. That is something, street curbside charging is something that we're looking at, and yeah, I'm definitely aware of the issues around maintenance and having these chargers be available. My understanding is some third-party vendors are better than others at maintaining the equipment, but it is definitely an issue. So thanks for the comments. Pamela, you have your hand up? Pam?
Yes, thank you. I would hope that the language would be changed. Well, first of all, Christine, it's always good to see you. I've missed hanging out with you at meetings. But I would really like the language change from that wimpy word consider. We are in a disaster time. And wimpy words like consider or encourage are just wrong. So that's my comment.
Thank you. I definitely hear you. David Muller, you have your, you have to unmute yourself. There
Sorry,
you go.
I was trying to find my cursor there. Great to see you, Christine. Thanks for the report. I've been really looking for an update on the EV readiness plan, so it's great to hear it through this venue. My comment is similar to that last one. It sounds like the report is going to do some sort of assessment, current status, maybe identify opportunities, but it will have recommendations. Is that correct? I mean,
yes.
It's going to, I think it's that guidance and especially, I think, as many of us know, that behavior change, that outreach, EV outreach is just huge, is to get people to rethink about this. And I think many of us in the advocacy community around electric vehicles are really looking to this EV readiness report to help sort of jumpstart at a lot of levels throughout the county and engage all the jurisdictions in those activities. So I really hope that's kind of the perspective under which it's being developed.
Yes, absolutely. And the idea of the plan is that we're going to, we're having a list of recommendations, and then all of the cities and towns will be able to identify which ones that they want to implement or that they feel are relevant to their situation. Kate, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering about the funding. Is this through the vehicle registration funds that are, wondering how the EV readiness plan is being funded, like what funds from TAM, and then and maybe Derek can weigh in on this too, and then if there's any other funding sources, because I'm wondering beyond the plan, the implementation of the plan, how things get funded.
Yeah, so the funding is through the TAM's alternative fuels program. And that funding is just for the development of the plan. There's a lot of other funding sources for vehicles, municipal fleets, for EV charging stations, and there's more coming from the state and apparently from the federal government as well. I'm not sure how the funds flow through TAM to this particular project. And Derek, if you want to jump in and if there's an answer for that, maybe you could provide it.
Sure. Great question, Kate. The fund is through our $10 vehicle registration fee that TAM collects and distributes through various programs, including the Alt Fuels program. The funding for the planning is just for the planning. It's intended to identify the vast array of needs around electrification, from new development to retrofitting existing development to fleet charging equipment at public courtyards, the vast array of general consumer and advocacy efforts that are needed both by the community and by agencies, including support for state legislation and potentially other areas to explore. So the implementation funding is going to follow that suite of strategies. So if there's strategies that identify how we need to retrofit existing multi-unit family development, those funds are likely to come from the public utilities that have a vested interest in selling power to those facilities, or from BACMed that already offers grant funds for multi-unit family. So it allows agencies such as TAM or MCE or BACMed or even future regional and state agencies to look at which areas they can fund and which ones align with their policy perspectives and priorities. So it's going to be implemented through a wide array of funds, not TAM funds. And just to remind everybody on this phone call, our TAM funds are very small in comparison to the deep pockets of the Air District and the state and the federal governments in addressing this challenge. So we're trying to use our dollars to leverage these outside regional and state and federal funds in the future, and are happy to be funding this effort and supporting the development of the countywide strategy that Christine presented.
Thanks, Derek. Pam, your hand is up. I don't know if you have another question or is that a leftover?
I have a comment, and that's that we were all pretty thrilled to see the infrastructure bill come out that included so much for EV, including buses. However, it's been kind of gutted. And if we don't, there are no tax credits in it. The funding for diesel school buses it's now only funding for 20% of the school buses across the country. Just enormous reductions in what we were thinking was coming. And I just wanted to share that with everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Christine and Derek. Always great to see you and great presentation. And that's something I'm very happy that you included the social equity, because when we are thinking about EV, not only the charges, but also like the cars, I think it has to be like a fund either at the federal level, at the state level. So the people that they live in our low income areas, they can also afford that, because even if you get rebates for cars, if the car costs 30,000 and you get a rebate for 10,000, people are not going to be able to afford the difference. So, but again, thank you so much for the presentation, and it's very exciting. So we look forward to seeing the first draft.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Cory, there are like 3 minutes. I'm hoping that people can stay maybe for another 5, but we have our wonderful Cory presenting some updates around the city. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I'll make this fairly quick. I think the most important thing, the thing that most people are here for, is to talk about the climate emergency resolution. So I'll just quickly update you. We're doing a lot around adaptation planning right now. We've kind of put together our internal city team, including our public works director, Quinn Gardner, who was on the call as well, and then our community development director as well. And we're meeting with the state Office for Planning and Research next week to kind of build our internal muscles around that. And then we're also doing some specific grant applications to begin adaptation planning in the Canal neighborhood with a real strong social equity focus. Working with MWPA on purple pipe infrastructure and looking at the springs that we have and some of the old water tanks and stuff like that to really kind of build out our drought resilience as well. We just got awarded a new Beacon Award for sustainability from the State Institute for Local Government. We were the first ones to kind of win that award, and we just got, and this is around community greenhouse gas emissions reductions, right? So it's mainly because we have so many strong climate advocates here, you all and so many other people in the community that are doing a lot, advocating for a lot. And so community greenhouse gas emissions went down. This is the 2019 data that this is based on, 27% below our baseline of 2005. And so we just got the Platinum Award for that, which is really exciting. And then in terms of the climate emergency resolution, so we're committed to bringing forward a climate emergency resolution to the council on September 13th. We want to be part of the growing community of adopters here, as more and more cities and the county have adopted these in Marin County. What we would like to do with it is reset our long-term target to match the state target, the current state target, which is carbon neutral by 2045. We're also committing to updating or amending the plan as needed. The last time we did this, it was a 10-year time frame that we updated the climate action plan. We like to have a lot of robust community engagement, so it's hard to want to update a plan very often when our commitment is really to implement the plan. However, we can do things like we did with the general plan. We can do amendments periodically. So maybe in 3-4 years, we can make amendments as well. So we'll be committing to doing that and making sure that climate action is included in all major decisions that we make for the city. And there'll be a big focus on equity as well. I mean, that's a real commitment that we have here. As you may remember, when we updated our climate action plan in 2019, we wanted to elevate both equity and economy and try to integrate it more into the plan rather than having a little paragraph here or there in the plan. So that's a really important focus for us. And so we'll recommit to that as well. And as you know, the general plan was just adopted and there's a lot of strong land use policies in there and things as well. So that is our intention to bring it to council on September 13th. And so I'll open it up for any questions or comments on that, and then I'll just tell you about a few upcoming dates that you should be aware of. How's that?
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Cory. Dolores, I know that you had a question before. I'm not sure if you still have the same question or any other questions.
Yeah, sorry, I came in a bit late. I was wondering what was happening with the buildup of vegetation in China Camp. Because I mean, well, I live across the street, so I've got a particular care about it. But I mean, if that conflagrates, so will San Rafael.
Right, that's a good question. That is, owned by the state, and Quinn, unfortunately, and Kate are not here. I know they're working very closely with the state, the county, and all the landowners, the big landowners here, but I don't have a specific answer for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but you can connect with them easily through that fire department website, so you should be able to connect with them. And if you can't, you can reach out to me and I'll connect you directly.
Thank you, Cory.
Great. David.
Hi, Cory. Thanks. And it's great to hear that San Rafael is moving ahead with its climate emergency resolution. As you know, 6 other jurisdictions out of the 12 in Marin County have already adopted. It's interesting, the date you said September 13th. On September 15th, Larkspur is scheduled to adopt its climate emergency resolution and be the 7th jurisdiction. And I just wanted to comment on a couple of things. The CER really is a great companion to the climate action plan and to the general plan. They each serve different functions. And one of the things you said there is really the key part of the climate emergency resolution. It's to make a clearer statement around the urgency of action, not specific actions, but the urgency of taking actions. And the thing that you said about making sure that climate is a key consideration in all of the city's key decisions. And that's really the unique thing about the climate emergency resolution. So it's a great companion document. I would urge you to consider putting something in there that might be an aspirational goal, that might even look beyond the state's goal, not necessarily as a commitment, but supporting and recognizing that these state goals are likely to ratchet down over time. So great work. You're joining the groups that have the jurisdictions that have already adopted, and I hope the draft that was I think offered by the San Rafael Sustainability Group is being seriously considered. I had read that draft. It really represents sort of the state of the art. It's sort of like the climate action plans. Each one, learns from the last and sort of is that much better. So I hope that will be a big influence on the staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
Okay.
Bill.
Bill.
B&B. And Bill, you're muted.
Is this better?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to, I really don't have any changes to suggest. I'm just thrilled that you're bringing this to the council, and that it will be, I hope it moves ahead, especially now with the IPCC 6th edition. I don't know if anyone, there are 13 chapters, and you can't go to sleep at night if you read one of them. And there's so much in there that you realize that the urgency is just there in every dimension. And the idea that this city is going to go along with the need to push it farther and farther as much as we can do. And I just want to commend you and others for having it. The aspirational one I like, and I can understand David's point of view. And also the one that talks about, making sure that that other things are taken care of as well that don't usually appear in an EIR. So I'm just commending you. Thanks.
Thank you. Bill.
Yeah, and I would second that, of course. I just wanted to underline how, from a practical standpoint, how important it is to adopt the various programs that we've been talking about tonight early enough so that they really make a difference. I mean, we're looking right now at we are in the decisive decade of really getting a handle on climate change finally. And it's going to take a while to do that. We need to get the infrastructure in place, the legislative, the ordinances in place that give people a framework for taking that action. And by following the priorities that the council has already set for the next 2 years in terms of building electrification, EV promotion, and organics recycling. If we get them in place in the next 2 years, we've got a good shot at meeting our greenhouse gas goals within the time frame of the general plan. And then, of course, ratcheting them up as the state may require, going forward. So thanks very much for moving us forward.
Thank you very much, Bill. Just a few quick things coming up. So on September 15th, there's a reusable foodware ordinance that the county is promoting, and they'd like to bring it to the Board of Supervisors before the end of the year. And it would require reusable and durable dishware when dining in at any restaurant. And it would require that any takeout not be in plastic, that it be either in compostable or fully recyclable containers or reusable containers. So it's going to be a big deal. And we're doing a lot of outreach trying to get our business community to have their eyes on it and know that it's coming and be able to give some input on it sooner than later. Because one of the caveats is that the county says if all the jurisdictions sign on and do it within 6 months after they adopt it, they'd be willing to help with the enforcement. If not, then they're not interested in doing that. And that means that if San Rafael passed it and Larkspur passed it and Fairfax and San Antonio passed it, but Corte Madera didn't. So it's really important to weigh in on it, I think. And so on September 15th at 3 o'clock, and you can find this on the County of Marin website, they're having a Zoom meeting for businesses. And we'd like to get restaurants and businesses there to participate and give feedback and be able to hear it and hear concerns and sort of brainstorm options to make sure that what comes to the county is as robust and helpful as possible. There's a lot of concern around how challenging it is, especially for restaurants right now, when they can't get staff. They've had significant losses due to the pandemic. And so I know there's a lot of concern about it amongst folks, and we want to make sure that people are heard. And let's see, let's mention the other thing, and then I think let Stuart. So the next, and then Coastal Cleanup Day is on September 18th, and that's on a Saturday, and we'll be doing cleanups all over the city. So I wanted you to be aware of that as well. And you can find that on the Coastal Cleanup Day website. Stuart.
Yeah, thanks so much, Cory. I just want to kind of chime in and really support the idea of a climate emergency resolution there, because the work that the Research Reserve does out at China Camp and up at our site up in Solano County is very focused on adaptation. And one of the issues around adaptation, which is getting us ready to deal with what's coming, is the less big what we have to face in the future, the more able we are to adapt. And so the idea of putting things, I think Bill really captured it well, the urgency is unmistakable, and everything that's happening this summer around all over the world is pointing strongly to that. And so if we're going to invest in trying to adapt and cope with what's coming, really being able to minimize how far we have to go with that is a huge benefit. And so it's a pay now or pay later kind of strategy. And the more you pay later, the worse it is for everybody, and some things you just can't cope with. So the urgency measures are just essential. I just wanted to put that out there. And appreciate what the city is doing to try to make this happen in the other jurisdictions in Marin. Thanks.
Thank you, Stuart.
Okay. Well, only 10 minutes late. That's actually pretty good. So again, thank you so much, everybody, for being here and being part of this committee. And we will see you. Do we have a date for the next meeting, Cory?
It'll be October, the third Thursday in October. I believe it's on our city calendar, and I'll definitely send out, notices at least once before then.
Wonderful. So again, thank you to everybody. And if you have any feedback, reach out to Cory and reach out to me. It's a pleasure being here with all of you. So thank you and have a great night.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Good to see you.
Take care.
Thanks for your participation. Bye-bye.